And for me, especially with boudoir, the point is to spend time with each woman and help to empower them. And, like, one of the first exercises I do in every boudoir shoot is like, look at yourself in the mirror. Do you freaking see yourself? Like, you look so good. And it's whatever it is for that person, but it's very powerful because the majority of people, no matter how they look, are insecure about something. It's so empowering, and it changes relationships. It changes those women's future if they just take it and go with it.
Yeah.
It's so impactful, and it's my way of doing social work without being in the social work field, and it's so important to me.
There's something to say there about how confidence kind of changes us, and what we put out into the universe we get back when we're sending that message of like, I'm firmly standing in what I'm doing and I believe in it regardless.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool, and that shines through what you do. Like, Sierra has all these little touches that she does with the people that she works with, and they're so unique and creative to what you do and what you provide that it's such a special experience. So if you ever get to work with Sierra, highly recommend it. It's such a cool experience. Alright, ready?
Let's do it.
Alright, everybody, welcome back to the FIO podcast, where we figure it out together. Today we have a special guest, and we're in my office. This is pretty cool. It's a work in progress, but today we have the beautiful Sierra. Thank you for being here.
Of course, I'm so happy to be here.
So I've been working with Sierra for how long now?
We are at 7 months, I think.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
We've almost been together a year.
A whole year.
Sierra reached out to me when I put something up about wanting to work with a video editor. I was really interested in starting to do YouTube content, and you just reached out, and you're just a perfect angel, and you're so good at what you do.
Thank you.
We hit it off immediately, and it was one of those relationships where we just felt like we were friends automatically. Yeah, and it's just been such a cool process to see how you work and how you develop, not only as, a business owner, but as a human being. And this was our first trip where we got to meet each other. Sierra's come out to film some stuff with me. I'm in the depths of prep, and getting content done myself has just been really hard. So I was like, just come out, we'll do a crazy amount of content, and
like
have
all in a week.
Yeah.
Knocked some stuff out.
Flat out. But it was great. So for people who don't know who you are, do you want to tell them a little bit about what it is that you do?
Sure. I am Sierra Dexter, and I own the Valley Imagery Productions. It's basically just a photography and videography business. I focus on a lot of different things. One of my big loves is boudoir, but I do weddings. I also just do video editing, hence the relationship. And then I do a bunch of different artistic endeavors. That would be where I would like to shift my business as things change and our relationship grows, and I'm able to kind of narrow down and niche. But for the most part, I just like to capture candid moments, and then for ones that have already been captured, like Maddy's, just make them funny, elevate them with anything that I can provide. And for us, it's more like a graphic design, video editing sort of situation, and it's been super great.
And how long have you been doing this business on your own?
I have been doing it a year and 7 months. Yep. So, let's see. January 2022 is when I started my business. I started photography a year before that. I worked with a separate company that just happened to create a relationship with me. I actually went to go do my own boudoir shoot for myself for fun. I was single. I just moved from Dallas back to Oxford, Mississippi, and was making friends, and the person who owned the business went to high school with me. And I just thought she was really cool, and I thought boudoir was really cool. So I went and did it, and while I was in the middle of a pose, she asked me, "Do you think you would ever want to maybe work with me?" And I was like, "You mean doing photography?" And she said, "Yeah." And so of course, I said, I think this would be the coolest job ever. And the very next Monday, I quit my job and just went all in. And she taught me pretty much everything she knew. And then I got to expand my own creative ways, I guess. I never really had an outlet to be a creative, and I've never touched a camera before aside from like a disposable camera back in the day. And so she just helped me technically, and I got to just give it my own twist, and it worked really well. I loved it. I immediately fell in love. I'd been in the wedding industry for a long time with catering, so I felt already pretty comfortable there, but I didn't feel photography wise, I didn't. But after about a year, we decided to part ways, and I made my own business, and that's been it ever since.
Wow, and photography is something that, you know, of course anybody can pick up a camera and point and shoot, but to really learn that kind of technology takes some time. Were you overwhelmed when you first got started?
At first, more so, not with the camera and not with the clients. It was actually more of an overwhelming feeling with the software for editing. It seemed just like a totally foreign experience. And while she helped me with how to do certain things, I still had to learn why, if that makes sense. Like, she would tell me her techniques for exposure, or, you know, just in general how she would set a camera up, but never really the why behind it. So I still had to do a bunch of research. So it was starting from zero, and it was a little overwhelming. But especially once I started my own business, it was kind of like fire under the ass. Like, you don't have a choice, you know?
Yeah.
It's either learn it or fail. And I was okay with failing if it meant I tried everything I could.
Wow, that's huge. I think saying that is really, really prominent. I mean, quitting your job and going all in, what was that like? Were you just like, anything's better than this right now? Or what was kind of going through your head in that moment?
So, I'm no stranger to switching things up, basically. I don't like quitting jobs. I feel confident in them, especially after, 4 or 5 months. You feel like you get the groove, you feel comfortable, and I liked what I was doing. I love the food industry. I was a catering director for a restaurant group in Oxford, Mississippi called City Grocery Restaurant Group. That group kind of created me as an adult. When I graduated college, I started working there towards the end and was with them for a solid 2 years before I moved to Dallas. And then during that time when I moved, I still worked for restaurants, but I was getting my master's degree in social work. So those two things don't really match either. But I never found a job that seemed to fit exactly for social work. And I still loved the camaraderie, the team, the fast pace in the trenches kind of deal of the food industry. So I still did that, but I also worked in leasing. So like all of these things just deal with people, but none of them are related whatsoever. So I was no stranger to skipping around and changing things up. But when I moved back to Oxford, I moved in January and COVID was in March. So my job as catering director existed, and I also worked for a nonprofit through that same restaurant group so I could utilize my social work skills. And it combined really well. It was a really rewarding job. But because of COVID, I think it kind of sparked something in me to try something new. And it just happened to align.
Yeah.
And so when things started becoming normal again, I had just started working with the company to become a photographer, and things started to feel normal. You could really experience weddings again. Catering was still kind of slow, and so I think I felt less of a purpose there. And so when I quit, I felt awful and guilty for the people that I loved that I worked with, because they were all family, you know? But at the same time, like, you gotta do what you gotta do to be happy. And also, if I felt like there was endless opportunities there, whereas with catering, I didn't really feel that way. I felt like I saw what it could be, and there were like maybe a couple different ways for it to grow a bit, but it was like, it was what it was. And I wanted to have the ability to expand as much as I could. And so I just walked in the office and I said, I really have bad news, but I really have to do this. and my boss was devastated because she's also my best friend.
Yeah.
And I felt awful, but she was like, okay, I'm angry a little bit, but like, let's talk through why. Like, is this really a smart idea for you? What would your salary look like? Because it's more of a contract position as a photographer, so you don't see like one big number, you see like all of these little things coming in.
Yeah, of course.
So add those things up. Does that look smart? Will you have insurance? No. Is that a bad thing or a good thing? Can you figure that out? What would your daily life look like? And so I basically made a letter to her of all of those things, and it was like a no-brainer. As I typed every little thing that came to mind, like how would my life change? How would this be, I guess, a challenge? All of the challenges still seemed exciting, and so that sealed the deal.
I think doing that letter is something that more people should do. I think that's such a good way to lay it all out if you are really not sure if you're about to make the right decision, if you're kind of in between certain things, because I feel like it's really hard to leave a job or leave a situation and jump into a new one when something really horrible isn't happening, when it's not catastrophic, when it's just like, well, my life's okay here, it's not growing or expanding, but this option's scary, I don't really know. Having that letter is really powerful because you had to lay it all out. And what a really cool friend to ask that of you. You know, like that's somebody that's really looking out for you.
Yeah.
Did you have any kind of resentment about that, like writing that, about her asking those questions, or in the moment were you just grateful for that?
I don't think I was either at first. I was pretty neutral. I felt like I had like pumped myself up to walk into the office and make the choice. And then I felt like, oh no, what if I made the wrong choice, but what if I am ruining this relationship or other relationships involved in that same company, or like, what if I am not thinking this through and I'm just wanting something different? Like, because I really enjoy change and I really enjoy taking risks, is it more about a risk thing or is it like a true choice? And so when she asked me to write the letter, I was like, why are you doing this? I'm going to change my mind, you know?
Yeah,
but
don't talk me out of it.
Yes, but I wasn't upset with her by any means. But as I typed, I realized, no, this is a great exercise. And even if I wasn't actually quitting, I think I would still maybe do that every year in any kind of job and see like, where am I? Is this a cause for change? Am I actually reaching my goals? Am I wanting something new? And I feel like as you write something out like that, you can see the pros and cons pretty easily. And it's different than writing pros and cons. You know, like you're actually describing why, you're actually describing your wants and desires. And you also see your life kind of as a whole and it not just as a job, if that makes sense.
If you were to suggest this exercise to somebody who's in between life stages, whether that be, you know, opportunities or moving or whatever like that, how would you tell them to start writing this letter? Like were you specifically writing it to her, or were you like, hey, this is what my life's going to be like? If you were to just create this exercise and copy paste it to somebody else, how would that begin? That's
a great question, because I do think when I started it, I was writing it to her. Like, see what this job is and see what this job is. But then as I wrote, it was more about like a letter to myself. So I would maybe suggest starting it as you're writing it to a boss or an advisor at school, or maybe even your parents. I think parents are a great choice too, because most of the time they try to guide you in some way, especially in your early 20s. And they may be judgmental, or maybe they're not, but they're still going to ask questions, and they're still going to be like, well, why are you doing that? Why did you just quit your job, you know? So I think yourself is really important, or somebody of like an authority figure that knows you well. And as you write, you describe how you feel, not so much just what it is. So I feel that my job provides me with, you know, security because I have great benefits, or I feel like my salary is less than I deserve, XYZ, YYY kind of thing. So instead of like I said, instead of writing just pros and cons, you're really describing how you feel about the things, and then you can just kind of start to see patterns of what is wrong, or maybe if it's just a feeling you have about maybe where you are, and you can connect the two. But I do think it's more of like a journal entry to yourself more than anything, even if you start writing it to somebody else.
I think that definitely makes sense. And I think even doing it that way, or even, practices where you're like, hey, this is what my life looks like in a year if I choose this option versus this option, of like, it's kind of like an affirmation of like, in a year from now, if I choose this path, these are the things I expect to feel. And like you were saying about, this is the income that I would likely have, and this is how that makes me feel. That, like you said, it kind of highlights any of those insecurities or paths where you're like, maybe I need to look into that part specifically a little bit more, or that like insecurity with the salary of like, oh, maybe that's what I'm really upset about, and I need to talk more about the salary, and it's less about the job.
Exactly.
That's a really cool way to kind of go through something like that. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Do you still have that?
It's in an email somewhere, so yeah, I do. Yeah, I should probably print that out and see how it aligns with how things actually turned out currently. Because at the time I had no expectations or desires to have my own business, and then it became that. So I wonder how that would look.
Yeah.
I need to go back.
Maybe when you go home, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that now, because I bet it would be a really emotional moment to be like, man, I did that and more.
Yeah.
Because you have.
Yeah.
Tell me about how your business has grown since those moments, because Sierra and I were in the car yesterday talking about how frustrating it can be being an entrepreneur and having a small business, and when you work with clients of all varieties, sometimes people don't have a lot of respect for your time or respect for your pricing or whatever, and they don't understand, and how it's really easy to not have the strength to be an advocate for yourself. But a lot of the times, these things come with experience. As a business owner, like most things, you have to go through it yourself with some of these things to be able to be like, oh, that's why that's important.
Messy. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how your business has progressed from there to where you are now.
So when I started, I made like January 1st the rollout. In December, the company I worked for before, we did a lot of like Christmas inspired things. So there was a holiday or Christmas boudoir marathon. So there was like, a really cool Christmas tree and fireplace and things like that. And then also same thing for family photos, because holiday cards. So at that time, I got to meet a lot of people, and I could continue that because so that business is in Memphis, Tennessee, which is about an hour and a half from where I live. So there was tons of people in Oxford that weren't getting that same experience. And so I could create that same experience for people that didn't get it from that business. So I didn't get to take their business, and I didn't want to either, because I lived far away, at least for a daily drive.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So I just kind of started there, used what I knew, and just connected with friends and family that wanted some of those things. Like a bunch of women wanted to do boudoir, and you start with something small like a marathon, which would be a very low impact for cost. So you're doing a mini version of what a regular shoot would be. And that kind of allowed the referral process to start. So word of mouth for boudoir was big at first. My first 6 months, I don't think I had one wedding. I had one wedding that I booked through Facebook. Aside from that, it was all boudoir. But because it was all boudoir, that is a pretty small amount of people that want to do that. And so I wasn't fully booked by any means. I had a cool wedding coming up, and I had those small pieces of income coming in, but I could really sell those things and build my social media presence with what I had. So I did that, but I also felt like I was struggling a lot. Didn't know why I couldn't get more weddings, or I didn't know why I couldn't get families or couples or things like that. So I did just a few things with some friends that are also photographers or videographers. They often don't get photos of themselves.
Right, of course.
So I offered as just like, can we trade, instead of doing something just free for everybody and devaluing what I could provide.
Right.
I offered something as a service trade instead of still requiring money. And those people are obviously going to share what I'm giving them because they're in it too. They know the struggle, they understand.
Yeah.
And so that kind of helped to build the couples and wedding side of things. But because the first 6 months was pretty stressful as far as like making sure I had the income coming in, I still worked as a bartender and server. So there was no schedule necessarily because I got really lucky with the job I quit that I've been there for over 8 years, and so somehow, some way they still let me work. And it's kind of on my own schedule. So if somebody wants to give up a shift or, you know, they really need help, I was going in at that time probably like once or twice a week, and that helped to supplement my income there. And then I just kept hustling, like social media, and I would hand out cards at all times. And then I started to make just fun things for me. Like I'd do model calls for people that want to do boudoir, but maybe want to do something kind of different and cool, but don't know what it might turn out to be, so they don't know if they should pay full price for it.
How does that work?
So people have seen my work through social media, and there's people that always wanted to do a boudoir, but they never ended up reaching out. And so a few of them, I just made like a story post that said, model call, I am hoping to create more artwork. It will be boudoir style, but the photos will not be just for you to use, they're for me to use. So you have to be comfortable with sharing some of those things. I gave a little bit of leeway if there was like anything in particular that they really didn't feel comfortable with.
Right.
But mostly all of it with the understanding you get this product for free so that I can use it however I need.
Right.
And if they wanted to have like hair and makeup done, we got that figured out. But I had about 5 different people reach out to say, okay, this is what I'm in for. I'm totally down with you sharing whatever you come up with. Any plans you have, just throw them my way, we can do it. And so I spent like 2 to 5 hours with each of those people on one day, just driving to a million places. I like to say that this is all kind of contradictory, but my business is a Southern Gothic editorial take on journalistic photography. And I think that it's inspired by the South and how at least Mississippi summer nights kind of feel. When you walk outside, it's all golden tones, and you see like wispy grass, and you hear the frogs, and you see old trees but new buildings, or really old buildings but new construction also, and some of the history still exists with the present. It's very interesting, and I feel like one of the only places where it's still so much like that, where you can feel like the pain of the past, but the trudging of the future, you know?
Wow.
And I try to create that with my work. So a lot of times I drive around and find places that look like that feeling. And so I took a lot of those models to those spots and did like juxtaposition with the beauty of a model and the kind of sexy, sultry beauty of boudoir with this super contradictory background, like a river and trees, or a bridge, or just very broken down buildings, just dilapidated stuff. And so from there, all of that gave me tons of content to push boudoir more, but also because it was portrait photography and not necessarily all just you would give this to your husband or your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, you can use it in a lot of different ways. And so that kind of sparked the art side of things, and from there I feel like my business grew a lot. So with that work, I was invited to do an art crawl in Water Valley and showcase, I think I showcased 11 pieces of work, and all of that was directly from those model calls. And so I got to speak with probably close to 300 people that came to the art crawl and just shake hands and talk about what I wanted to do. And now, this year, I'm planning that same art crawl.
She's freaking planning it now!
So it's been like a whirlwind. The art side of things has really grown quite a bit. And when you just have things put in places that people go, they start to ask questions. Who is that? What kind of work is that? Where can I get some work like that? And then my couples and weddings and stuff have kind of shifted to where they're also artistic, but not as weird, I guess, as my art.
Yeah.
And so they can see how it relates, and that has grown my business quite a bit in the last, I don't know, I'd say the last 6 months. So first year was hard and struggle and multiple jobs and things like that, but the first year, the last 6 months of it is what started the growth that I can feel in the last 7 months.
It's so interesting that like in so many things that we do in life, when we're figuring it out, everything is so complicated and new and challenging, but then like we find our groove and everything comes together. Like you found your style and you're like, this is the art that I want to create, this is the thing I'm passionate about, like the location and taking in, I don't know, just kind of appreciating the beauty of even like the mundane of small towns and romanticizing that, some of the dreariness and making it beautiful. Like you found that and then everything excelled, because I don't know, I think there's something to say there about how confidence kind of changes us, and what we put out into the universe we get back when we're sending that message of like, I'm firmly standing in what I'm doing and I believe in it regardless. I think that that's so cool, and that shines through what you do. Like you have, Sierra has all these little touches that she does with the people that she works with, and they're so unique and creative to what you do and what you provide that it's such a special experience. So if you ever get to work with Sierra, highly recommend it. It's such a cool experience. But what are some of the challenges that you came across when you were starting this? Like when you were outside of just getting clients, creating your prices, creating boundaries? Because a lot of the time, with social media now, people are like, okay, can you get those 5 shots for me? And I don't want to pay for a whole 2-hour session, or things like that. How did you overcome some of those things?
So that was a tough battle for sure, and I spent a lot of nights crying, to be honest, and frustrated and feeling like I wasn't connecting well, or what I was offering didn't match where I wanted to go. So when I started doing art exhibitions, I think that sparked changes. So at the beginning of my business, I offered like 30-minute sessions that were priced at X amount, and hour sessions that were priced at X amount, and then of course you could book packages like full videos or full photography for a wedding, but there wasn't anything that matched anything artistic. So it seemed more like a service than a service with an experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I was getting frustrated because I felt like I needed to fill my day with like 30-minute shoot, 30-minute shoot, 30-minute shoot, 30-minute shoot, back to back to back. And I did at some points, especially with boudoir. But if you've ever done boudoir or you've ever thought about doing it, it's really difficult to do it in 30 minutes or an hour and keep on time while people are changing into lingerie, which is really hard to get into, and touch up makeup and feel comfortable with you being vulnerable like that. And so I felt like I would get frustrated with my clients, which it's not their fault, it's mine because I created it that way. But then I felt like they weren't receiving a true experience. They were either rushed, they didn't remember the session because it was so crazy.
Yeah, it didn't stand out because it was...
Yeah, and they loved what they got, but did they love the experience? I don't know. And would they recommend it to somebody? I don't know, because was the price right for that experience to feel rushed and crazy and, wow, I love my photos, but I don't remember the whole point of this. And for me, especially with boudoir, the point is to spend time with each woman and help to empower them. And like one of the first exercises I do in every boudoir shoot is like, look at yourself in the mirror. Do you freaking see yourself? Like, you look so good. And it's whatever it is for that person, but it's very powerful because the majority of people, no matter how they look, are insecure about something. And putting on lingerie in front of somebody you don't know to take pictures.
Yeah, with a camera, like,
yes, it's so weird. Yeah, and then you start thinking about those little things like, is my nipple popping out? Or
like make a sexy face. You're like, I don't know what that even looks like.
Especially for folks that are not comfortable with the camera at all, or even may have never done a regular photo session,
Yeah, now this is a big jump.
Yes, and so for me, I would get frustrated about that and felt like, I am putting people in a position where they're not getting the experience that they need, but also it's my fault, and I need to fix this to where I don't feel like I need to fill a day with clients in order to make the perfect amount of money, but also have enough time for those clients to get the experience I want them to get. And so the only thing that made sense to me was removing time from the whole issue. Meaning packages don't have a time limit. I have one client per day. That's that. Unless it is something very specific, like we need a book signing covered and they really do just need 10 photos. That's a different experience. And is very one-off. I only have one client per day and they get as much time that it takes. Like if you need 5 hours, because that's what it takes you to feel comfortable in lingerie, and we need to go to 5 different spots to get what we need to get, then we're doing it. And I'm not trying to rush you to get to another client, because I feel like what I'm giving you is valued at the right price that I chose, which did mean increasing prices quite a bit to where I almost felt uncomfortable asking that much, but I knew the experience was worth it. It would just take somebody doing it to realize. Then to match with the artist side of things, I felt like in order to replace some of that, so why is this session, though you are giving me as much time as I want, still the same product? Like I'm still getting a gallery where I download photos but nothing else. Like I need something else here. And my thought was I wanted every experience to be an artistic experience, especially for myself, to feel like I was creating work and not just doing what a client wanted at every point. Because I think a lot of the art side of things is what my clients end up loving at the end anyways. Like those little details in between moments that I don't know that I would be able to get as well if I was on a time crunch. So in order to create that experience, I started offering consultation calls where we would talk through outfit choices, colors, desires for the shoot, locations, etc. Then I would create a unique mood board for each client. From that mood board and their shoot, I create a shadow box keepsake or a gift box keepsake that is hand glued and painted and cut and all kinds of stuff in that. And I know shadow boxes are, a thing of the past, but I think they're
still awesome.
So cool. And it's, to me, photos are meant to be hung and they're meant to be seen on a wall, and they're great to post and things like that, but
they need to live somewhere.
Something needs to live somewhere, yes. And so even if my clients never print out their photos or they never order a book through me or anything like that, they still get a physical product and they're still getting something that commemorates the session and the time in their life, and it's just like a history keeper, which also goes back to that thing I feel like with Mississippi. It's like we're the keepers of the past, there. And I don't know that that'll ever change, but if it does, somebody's got to hold the past, including moments of, mom and dad and their 5-year-old. That doesn't last very long. Your kid changes so fast. Or when you're pregnant, it goes by so fast. Or when you're young and beautiful, which we are all beautiful whenever, but at a point you're like, I should have appreciated when I was 22. Dude, I should have appreciated when That
is one of the biggest things that I think about, because I used to never, want to share pictures of my body. I was so consumed with the reputation that I was having. I was like, I want to be a respectable athlete. I want to be a respectable coach. I want to have all this respect. I want people to think I'm a leader and a resource and whatever. And then I'm like, I'm doing all of this work to build my body, and I'm not appreciating it, and I'm saying that in order to receive respect, I have to actively disrespect and not love this thing? Because not loving this thing is an active disrespect, not appreciating it. And that doesn't have to be public. You don't have to publicly, post your body for whatever if you don't. But it got to that point, actually, Schitt's Creek.
Really?
From, you know, have you seen that?
Yes.
Moira Rose, and it was like, take all of the nude pictures because you're going to look back and, and that hits me a lot because I'm like, there is going to be a day where maybe I get injured or maybe I'm older and I'm 60, 70 and I'm like, I fucking worked my ass off for that and I never I didn't take pictures, so I can't look back at it. I didn't appreciate it, and I wish I did. And that's so stupid. Like,
so stupid.
So what you're doing is really helping people to appreciate these little moments and have that empowerment. I think it's so cool. Like when we first started talking, we were talking about video editing and whatnot, and I got to learn your passion for boudoir, which was very new to me.
Yeah.
And being able to like see why you liked it was really cool. And especially you're in a male-dominated field.
Yeah.
Media is very male-dominated.
Yes.
And that can be a very uncomfortable experience for women as well if they're not feeling typically safe in that environment. And now you get to create this experience of like, I'm your bestie today.
Yeah.
I'm hyping you up.
Yeah.
These pictures don't have to go anywhere, but you can have them. Like
Exactly.
you can feel really good about this moment. And I think that that's such a gift. Like that anytime that with your job you can take somebody in and say, I'm taking care of you today in my way.
Yeah.
That's such a gift.
Yes, it truly is. And a lot of times the experience of boudoir is actually more about the experience, and people, for instance, a lot of women come to me for pre-wedding photos that they can make a book on their wedding day to give to their groom, or something of the sorts. They give it to their husband. So they come in thinking, this is for my husband.
Mm-hmm.
But as they go through the shoot, they're like, oh, wait a second. This is about me.
This is my body to have. Yeah.
Yes, and also, what cooler gift to give your husband than being more confident?
Yeah.
So like it affects all things. It affects the way your kids see you. Obviously, they're not seeing the photos, but they're seeing mom come back being like, I'm a bad bitch.
Yeah.
And
I own this.
Yes, exactly. And they're not talking negative about themselves as much anymore,
Mm-hmm.
We all do the thing where it's like, oh, my hair looks bad today. Sure, maybe it does, you know? But like, not everything looks bad about you, and it's not a fact at all times. And so like, if you don't like a little bit of cellulite on your legs, did you see it in those photos? Yeah, it looks hot as hell.
Yeah.
Like you look good.
Yeah.
Stop. And your kids are gonna learn so much from that, and it's so empowering, and it changes relationships, it changes those women's future if they just take it and go with it.
Yeah.
It's so impactful, and it's my way of doing social work without being in the social work field, and it's so important to me.
I think that's huge. I think we're really similar in that way, and I see that a lot in creatives where we get into certain fields because we feel like that's a job we have to do or whatever, and then realize we can do it in a bigger, more matched up kind of way. Like with myself, I got into nursing, and I was like, I want to help people, and I want to heal people, and whatever, and then I found powerlifting, and I was like, actually, I can do it through this, and that connects way better. I can do a better job at this, and I feel like it's just so cool that you were able to find that and find this like love for art and be able to work through people that way.
Yeah.
I know that we want to talk about you being pregnant, but you brought something up that I wanted to also address is you're obviously having a baby boy.
Yes.
But how cool that you get to teach a young man how to respect and appreciate women.
Yeah.
Like he'll be able to have you as a role model of like, wow, this is women's empowerment.
Yeah.
Like you get to be the first step to something like that. And that's so cool.
It is so cool. I feel honored to have that opportunity and a little scared because I want to do it well, but I feel like having this business allows me a platform to do it, and if I ever lose my way in that, it'll bring me back, and it's so cool. I hope that he appreciates it.
Yes, yeah.
Boy, you better.
Yeah. This is Sierra's first bit of baby.
Yes.
And since we haven't talked about it, Sierra, do you want to tell them a little bit about what your training background is? Because that's really kind of why we got connected. Obviously it was for the job, but you found me through fitness, and let's hear about your own side of fitness.
Yes. Okay. So I like a lot of people's stories. I was an athlete all growing up, but never lifted or anything like that, but I just was always active. And then when I went into college, I didn't have an outlet at all, and so I was just, going to school and kind of socializing, but nothing crazy and no physical endeavors whatsoever. And that first year, I felt myself lack purpose, as well as not like what I saw, because not only was I gaining weight and looking different, I also wasn't confident in myself because I wasn't doing anything about the problems I was seeing. So I found CrossFit, and that's where mine started. There's a small CrossFit gym in Oxford called Oxford CrossFit, and it's a great little community. It's a very small gym where everybody's like family, and I know that's the case for a lot of CrossFit gyms, and it really sparked like this desire to just move and enjoy sweating and finding like a team again, if that makes sense. Even though it wasn't like a traditional team, it just felt like that.
Yeah.
And I caught the bug immediately. And so I did CrossFit for about, I'd say 2 years. And then while doing CrossFit, I was pretty fast, but I wasn't very strong. And so there was a coach at that gym who was like, I think you could be pretty good if we could just work on your strength. And so he created this program for me that would it was like a Ollie lifting program mostly with WODs that still existed throughout, but I was mainly focusing on clean and jerk snatches and squats for the most part. And so through doing that, I was like, by the end of this, I don't want to do WODs anymore. I just want to keep lifting. I just want to be strong. And I just thought it was so fun and so challenging in a whole different way. And I felt badass. I just truly felt badass, and I felt like my body was changing, and I really liked how it was changing. I was gaining weight because I'd lost quite a bit by doing CrossFit. It was very small, but like ripped, I guess. But I felt like I wanted more mass again, like I wanted legs again, and that kind of thing. And so by gaining strength, that started to happen, and I loved it. So when I moved away from Oxford, I moved to Dallas and was searching for a gym, but I started the process of looking at a CrossFit gym first because that's what felt comfortable to me. But what they had, or at least what I found, only had class options and no like open gym or nothing where you could go and lift and then also do some CrossFit. So then I found a really cool gym that was a powerlifting gym. Everybody there does powerlifting. And so I went in as an Ollie lifter, and it was a big thing. Everybody was like, dude, you could be even stronger at Ollie lifting if you did powerlifting. Come on, let us show you. And so finally I was like, okay.
Come to the dark side.
Yeah. In fact, there was a girl there, her name's Michaela, and we hit it off pretty well at first, and we were the same age, and she thought it was just really cool that I did something different, and she'd always wanted to do Ollie lifting. But she was a power lifter, and she wanted to kind of like share the bug. Yeah. And you and Bonnie were two of the people that she was like, you need to follow these people. Because they're close to our age, and they do it, and you've never really seen a woman do it before. You've only seen like Maddy Rogers doing Ollie lifting. That was like my thing. I loved her.
She's badass.
And Hunter, Elon, and just some of these other people that did Ollie lifting.
Bad bitches you should follow.
Bitches you should follow. So then when she showed me you guys, that started a whole different, it changed my perspective, I guess, on what lifting could be and what I could be and how many ways I could take this. And I can still do Ollie lifting, and I could still do CrossFit if I wanted to, but I could get really fucking strong doing powerlifting, and those other two things benefit from powerlifting. The stronger you are, the faster you can be, and the stronger you are, the more cleans you can do, you know what I mean? And so from there, I just started doing powerlifting and sometimes Ollie lifting, and done it ever since.
That's amazing. And so now you're pregnant with your first baby.
Yes.
Tell us about how that's going with training. What have you discovered? What have you enjoyed?
It has been a roller coaster, I guess. It is so wild to feel your body change so much, but also really empowering to continue to lift while you're pregnant, because you're like, do you know what is going on inside of my body?
Organs, you're making things.
Yeah, and I'm still moving differently, but well, and I know that if I keep this up, I can still do it afterwards. And so my training has changed while being pregnant, because I have noticed some coning a little bit and like benching and certain movements, which is to be expected. But transitioning from as heavy lifting to lower weights, just modified movements, a little bit more of the WOD, HIIT, CrossFit style workouts to make sure I'm sweating enough and like moving fast enough and getting my heart rate up a little bit has been really refreshing, especially in the summer, because I don't know, for some reason I just really like to sweat a lot in the summer, and it's been nice. So I've been doing like the main 3 lifts, deadlifting, squats, and then no longer bench the last maybe 2 months or so.
Okay.
But I'm still doing those just at much less weight and just making sure I'm maintaining volume and good form. And then I do like a 15 to 30 minute movement experience. So I'm still using some dumbbells. I'm not going super heavy, but I'm just making sure form, breathing, core work, like all of that is still intact. So when postpartum gets here, when I'm cleared to like feel good, feel like I can move well and not injure myself in any way, then I've already laid the platform for a long time, but also I continued through a process that changes your balance and the way your legs can move when you're squatting, and your hips feel different, and just all of the things are different, but you can still do it. And it's been really cool.
And it's been really cool because, you know, Sierra and I work together and we're also really good friends. We have calls every week, which are kind of really us just rushing through the work part and talking about everything else. But one of the best things that I've been able to witness, you know, obviously getting to know you has been amazing. It's been one of the best experiences, and you're one of the best friends that I could ever ask for. But it's been so cool to find this like strength and femininity and like the power of like what that really means. Not just like, oh, I dress like feminine and, you know, the feminine energy, but being able to like, I don't know, just watching you research these things and listen to these podcasts and really feel like I have this body and this is what my purpose is right now, is I'm creating this life and I want to support it, and just seeing you grow as a person there has just been phenomenal. What is something that has maybe been like a revelation through, you know, this whole experience? What have you really learned, or what are you really grateful for kind of seeing at this part?
That is also a great question, and thank you so much, because all the things right back at you. I feel like I'm still learning this. So it's still tough, but it is a revelation, and it is something that has continued to show up in my life as a problem that I feel like now is the time for me to fix that. Is letting go of control over everything. And so not being able to stick to a program absolutely 100% exactly the way it is, because I can do it no matter how much I worked, no matter whatever, you know, that can't exactly exist in my current state of being because the health of my child and the health of myself is so important. Sometimes that means way more rest than it does getting a workout in exactly the way it's programmed.
Oh, and you're such a doer.
I'm such a doer.
One of the best things about Sierra, and it just is so great, is she's so organized. You have like,
thank you.
When we first started talking about working together, you had like systems in place. You were like, okay, this is how it's going to be, and my disorganized self came in and we found a middle ground. You are somebody who wants to take on all these projects, you have a timeline for it, you know what you want to do, and how frustrating it can be to be in this position of like, I can't do all the things I want to do, but then being able to turn it into like, no, this is a good thing, I'm understanding relaxation, like that's the job. Like relaxing is you doing the job too. Whether that's training or not taking on as many projects.
And not feeling like, sometimes, and this is like an old thought too, training can sometimes be this is a bad word, but punishment. Like, if I didn't work out for 3 days, it's like, you have to do this.
And it's a hard one.
Yes, or like, you ate like insane, and so you need to work it off. But none of that exists right now, because you need to train for movement, in my opinion. Like, for me, I need to train because I'm training for labor, and I'm training to be a mom, and all of those things right now. and for just health and wellness, you know. Something that we've talked about a lot is that my blood pressure has been kind of high, and so finding training that fits to help my blood pressure at least stay where it is, not get higher or lower it, is really important. And never once in my life before have I thought, is my training today affecting my blood pressure, you know? And that is like a direct correlation to what training is for, what eating healthy is for, you know? And
we get so caught up in the aesthetic and forget that's like, oh, this is actually affecting my body. That matters.
Right, and that's the whole point of why I'm doing this in the first place.
Oh, being healthy, I forgot about that part.
Right. And so it's readjusted my focus and allowed me to realize why I do this anyways. And I hope that I remember that moving forward as like a way to honor just moving is so cool, and we're lucky we get to. But also that I'm not fully in control all the time, and it's okay if things aren't perfect. I just do what I can, control what I can control, and let the rest just be. And remember that rest is really important, food is really important, and that's that, you know?
Yeah. What are the things you're most excited for through the rest of pregnancy before baby comes?
So much. So next week starts third trimester, so we're really like in the last push.
We're doing it.
We're doing it. I am excited to see his room become a room. Doug, my partner, he is currently, while I'm gone, working on painting and building things and all the stuff that I can't help with like I normally would want to. And so he just took it on by himself, which I'm so grateful for and really excited to see. I'm also really excited to see and smell baby clothes that have been freshly washed and like ready for him. I'm excited to lean into what it is to be a mother. And I'm really excited for birth, even though it's a little scary. I'm excited to see myself do it. You know? Like, I've prepared as much as I know how to by listening to a million podcasts and reading books and just familiarizing myself with what could be in birth. And we're planning a home birth with a midwife, and it sounds so lovely to me, and I just can't wait, and I hope it is everything I want it to be, but if it's not, I'm just really looking forward to doing whatever I can to do it and getting my baby afterwards, you know?
And we've talked about like how scary birth is, but you've listened to so many podcasts that are also like, sometimes birth's really enjoyable. Sometimes it's really amazing. Like, maybe it's not a large percentage of people. You've said even like people in birth can orgasm. People can have this crazy moment.
Isn't that wild? That is so opposite of what we hear traditionally.
I always think of it as like a horror film. Which I've seen some births, and it is it's brutal. It's something that happens, but to think like, hey, there's a chance that could be you. That could be one of the most enjoyable experiences you ever go through. And how less scary of a thought is that? Like,
so much better.
You get your baby at the end. You've worked really hard for it, and what an incredible thing for your body to go through.
Not to mention like the experience with the people that are there with you. I don't plan to have many, but you know, Doug's gonna be there, and the way our relationship will change and grow just through that is so awesome. Even if it's so hard, like, what a very cool, intimate thing to experience with somebody. I mean, you know, you don't have something like that with other people, and I just don't know. I know having the option of it being so enjoyable, or at least like this extremely powerful, empowering, you know, experience could be mine, and I will do everything I can to make it that way if I can. And otherwise, hell yeah, I fucking did it, you know? You know? So I'm excited. I'm so excited for that.
Me too. If you could give advice to anybody who's just like realized that they were pregnant, who's kind of in this like, oh shit, I'm really excited, but what the fuck do I do? You know, you don't have to have all the answers right now. You obviously don't have the baby yet, but you know, up until this point, what kind of advice would you give that woman?
I would definitely suggest talking to other women, just in general, whether they've had kids or not, and just talk about the topic of pregnancy, birth, labor, being a mom, because I don't know that we do that enough. And having people from all different type of perspectives, it can give you power, and it can also just like open your eyes to different options and things that you wouldn't know about. It's also just nice to feel like you have a community, especially if you are kind of scared. Like, I am really excited, but I didn't know that this would be right now in my life. Or, wait a minute, am I ready? I don't know. You know, no matter how much you plan, it's still like, it's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it happens fast. You know, 9 months is 9 months, but 9 months is only 9 months at the same time. So, talking to other women that you know, and also there are some podcasts that I feel like are invaluable. There's Birth Hour and there's Birth Story, both of which are mostly storytelling of births. And there's obviously advice and resources and recommendations on ways you can do things, whether it's hospitals, midwives, doulas, all different types of words and birth topics and things that come up. But just familiarizing yourself with how a birth can go, some of the basics that are normal across the board, and it makes things less scary. It makes it feel like, oh, all of these people have done this. Like, they've done it. They made it through some very traumatic, some really amazing births, and they're still here to talk about it. They're still here to share their story. We're still talking about the stories. And so you realize you're just a part of this whole collective of women giving birth to new human beings who will also eventually have children and go through the same thing. And it's just really powerful. And for me, that's something that I would suggest to anybody, but also something I will continue to do. Like, when I get into labor, I know there may be hundreds of other women also in labor at that very exact moment. Yeah. And how cool is that? Because listening to those stories helps to connect that idea. Because a lot of times you feel alone in pregnancy, and I would imagine, I'm not there yet, but birth and labor, it feels you are the only one going through this, but you're so not. In the moment, yes, it is just your body and your child, but so many people understand and have done it. So it's just cool.
And millions of women have done it before. That's a thought that kind of consoles me at times, where I'm like, I don't know, it's so scary, who would do that, But then it's like, okay, some women have done it like 5 times. Like, it can't be that bad if we continue to do this thing.
And it connects well to training too. Like, I know it's an easy thing to come back to for us to talk about, but like, training sucks sometimes. You know this, especially right now, like training and your nutrition right now are really, really hard. But the reward makes it all worth it. You know, like knowing you did your best and then potentially winning. And so like in this experience, getting your child is gotta make it 100%, 1000% worth all of the difficulty it took to get there.
You're gonna be such an incredible mama. I'm so excited for you.
I can't wait. I hope so.
In terms of like business, entrepreneurial things, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's listening and maybe has been in that crossroads like you've been in your life?
One thing is going to be a hard truth, and then another is more inspiring. One is that not everybody is cut out for it, and so being honest with yourself is really important. Saying like, I really want to try this, and going all in. Do it. But make sure you're doing some checks along the way. Asking people that have also been in business for a while. For me, I'm lucky because I have friends who have done it for a long time, and then my partner, he's been an entrepreneur for 20 years. So I know, even though our businesses are not alike, if he sees something in my business that he's like, I don't know, why are you doing that? He may be right, and I need to look at that. And so if there's ever a time when I'm doubting myself, that might just be because it's tough, but I always think to myself, is this a time when I need to say, okay, I'm not in it for the right reasons. I need to be an entrepreneur and get a job and do really well for that company and just like.
And that's okay.
And because those people need to exist too. So The first one being just being honest with yourself. That is obviously really hard, but also really inspiring, I guess, too. So it's not totally bad, but seriously, be honest with yourself.
Right.
And also, one of my things that I have said over and over, I think I've already said it even here, is like, just, if you fail, do it hard. Like, just, who cares?
You did it. You gave it all.
Yeah, there's always a job that can help you pay your bills. There's always something that you can get. Don't be scared to like hit the bottom and be like, okay, well, you know what?
At least I went for it.
Yeah, I went for it. I went as hard as I could. I tried everything I could. I gave it everything I could for as long as I could. That's it. I tried.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work. It was so fun. It was really sucked too at sometimes, but now I just move on to the next thing, and maybe it sparks a different business idea, or maybe it just tells you, like I said before, you go work for another company and you just give that your all, and you find other ways to give your life meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Just go all in, like do it and do it well.
I think that's great advice.
Thank you.
Well, it's been so amazing to have you on here. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram or Facebook. My personal is Sierra Dexter, at Sierra Dexter, or just Sierra Dexter on Facebook. And then my business is the Valley Imagery and Productions. We usually call it the VIP Studios for short, but you can find it on Instagram at thevalley.imagery.productions, or the boudoir page at the VIP Boudoir.
Are you taking clients right now?
I am. I'm always taking clients. I am fully booked for 2023, but 2024 is mostly wide open. I have a few weddings planned and a couple art shows, but other than that, hit me up.
And when are you doing?
I'm due October 19th.
So hopefully we can all come and support and be like, oh my God, Sierra's on her baby.
Yes, spooky season, baby.
Spooky season, baby. All right, well, we are so glad to have you on here. I'll put all of her links and everything in the description, but I just love you. Thanks for talking with me.
Thank you for having me here, and also here in Chicago.
Yay! Yay! Romper hug.